Hey there, Corey here with the Spiritual Archaeologist channel. And back in my Courage to Be Yourself video, I'd spoken about my mom. So this dig today is about digging up the treasures of getting help from those who have passed away, who have crossed over. And in that video, I talked about my mother and how she saved me from a car wreck after she passed away. And I have some more visits from her that I would like to share with you. I really struggled whether or not to share this video because it delves deep into my alcoholism and what some of my past stuff. But I think it's important, and keeping it to myself doesn't help anybody. So here we go. The Christmas, my mother died in August, and that Christmas after she passed away, my roommate and I had driven around to our family's parties for Christmas Eve, and my roommate drove, and so I was free to drink, which is exactly what I did. And then when we got home, I decided to light a candle before I went to bed, and it had only been a few months since my mom had passed, and it was not a good time in my life. And I had really dove to the bottom of a tequila bottle when she died, and I was a real bad drunk before she died, but I got even worse, much worse, after she passed. So I was looking at this candle, and the flame kept rising and rising, and it got to the point where the flame itself was coming off of the wick, and it happened repeatedly. And I had a very good buzz on, I absolutely did. So, but I know that this is true because it happened to me. So I'm not going to justify it, I'm just going to tell the story. So this flame kept coming off the candle wick, and it really scared me. So I went ahead and put the candle out and decided to wash my face and go to bed. Actually, I did not put the candle out, excuse me. I walked over to the sink to wash my face and go to bed, and I could see the candle in the background. I was remembering it wrong, I apologize. So it's still doing this thing in the background, and I splashed water on my face, and I put my face up to look in the mirror, and this is one of the most startling things I've ever had happen to me in my entire life, and it's the only time I've ever had a visit from somebody who's crossed over, who has visited me through my own eyes. So I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm looking at myself, but it's my mother. I don't know how to describe it. She was in my body, looking at me in the mirror, yelling at me about how I was ruining my life with drinking, and I was ruining my daughter's life with my drinking, and that she wanted me to stop. She was pleading with me. She was so angry and so desperate to get my attention that this is what she was able to do. And I've had a lot of visits from people who have crossed over, and one thing that I've learned from them is they lose their desire to be socially acceptable. They lose fear around, saying stuff that needs to be said that people don't say because they don't want to alienate their relationships. They lose that, and they are totally willing to say exactly what they think, and I'm so grateful for that. I've gotten so much healing and so many life changes from that. So I'm standing in front of this mirror, and this candle's going wild behind me in the reflection of the mirror, and my mother is yelling at me in my face through my eyes, and all of my communications have been very telepathic. And that's the best way I can describe it. But she was really giving me the business, and it was because I was killing myself, and I was destroying everything in my life. I was destroying all of my relationships, my ability to work, my ability to produce an income, my ability to think like a rational human being. I was throwing every single thing I had away through drinking, and I didn't quit then. I didn't even quit then. So that story happened, and then a couple years later, I was driving her truck, and I had had a DWAI at this time and a DUI under my belt. The first happened at 18 and the second happened at 25 right before she died. And then, so I'm driving her truck one night and I'm out to the bars, and I used to love to go by myself because I didn't want to wait for people and I didn't want to get hung up on everybody else's plans. I wanted to come when I wanted and leave when I wanted. So I did a lot of drinking and driving, and part of what keeps me sober today is that I didn't hurt anyone. And I think about that. You know, I don't want to drink anymore. It's been a long time since I've wanted to drink. But when I used to want to drink in early sobriety and even mid-sobriety, later in sobriety, that keeps me sober, knowing that I didn't go out and mow somebody down. So anyway, I was getting ready this night that I was driving her truck, and my intuition kept telling me, don't go out. Do not go out tonight. Don't go out. Whatever you do, don't go out. Just stay home. And I was like, shut up. Just leave me alone. And I went out. And it was a winter night in November 8th, 1998 to be exact. And I was coming home, and I wasn't that drunk. I had a very high tolerance at that time. But I was drunk enough to be very illegal driving. And I slid on the ice in her truck, and I almost put it in the river next to the road. And I couldn't get it started, and I couldn't get it to move, and I didn't dare get out because if I was so scared. The emergency brake didn't work. I was so scared that if I got out, I had it in gear, of course, and the brake on, but I was teetering over the edge, and I thought, if I get out, it's going. So I sat there as a sitting duck, which didn't really matter much because within 5 minutes the police were there. Anyway, that night I got in gigantic trouble. Gigantic trouble. I got my third DUI. I got really mouthy with the police. They took me to jail, and I was just a completely combative nightmare. And they beat the hell out of me in jail. I came out of there purple and green. But here's the thing, it wasn't okay that they beat me up. It wasn't. And they're all going to have to pay their karmic price for doing that. But the main point of it is, and here's why I know my mother was involved, DUIs were not getting my attention. And when these guys were beating me up in jail, I kicked one of them to stop them from pounding me around. And then they wrote me up for felony assault for doing that. So this is hard to share on here, but it's important to me to share it because there are people out there hurting and in the throes of alcoholism and addiction. And I lived through all that, and I got out of that, you know, and I ended up being having an amazing life after all that happened. I was not convicted of a felony. I did go through their program, which I'm going to talk about in the future, but the point of this dig is that DUIs were not getting my attention. I was in her truck. She was pleading with me to stop drinking, telling me how it was ruining my life. And I think that she was totally willing to help get me in a position that even if I went to prison, I would still live. You know? So, I don't mean to get so emotional, but I've never talked about this so publicly before either. So it ended up saving my life, ultimately. And the thing with the police, I got real hung up on that for a few years. But the fact of the matter is that was the true beginning of the end of my drinking days. And without that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would not have made it. And I got very sick from drinking after that. I still didn't even learn. Like I said, that was the beginning of the end. It took so much to get me to see what I was doing to myself. But my mother has helped me a ton, and she's helped me so much after she died, and we do get help from those who love us, and the love doesn't stop. And I really believe that we can help those who have crossed, and that we all need help from each other, and it's not just all of us here in this realm, in this dimension, in this physical reality. I think it transcends. So she did ultimately end up saving my life. Please join me for my next video about her, and they are the dream visits. Thank you so much for joining me on this dig.